Alright, well, I've received a request from a fellow pilot who wanted to know how I did some of my mounts, and I thought I'd take a minute to discuss that. Probably the one he's most interested in, I'm assuming, is the external mount. I'll just quickly show that here. So I can't claim responsibility for the design. I just kind of took something I saw online and said, hey, I've got a bunch of parts in the garage that I'm not using for anything, so let me put something together on my own. I'll put a link down in the description to the site for the guy who makes these. I think he charges about $75 or something like that for them, so they're pretty inexpensive, and they probably are better quality than what I have here. Let me kind of talk over some of the parts here. So my son was in the garage and he changed the seat post on his bicycle, and he left a cam that it wasn't using for anything, so I used this cam from the seat post as part of this external camera mount here. I'll try to show you the parts of how this works. I'm just going to unscrew it here. The good thing about having this take so long to screw on and screw off is that in case it does come loose in flight, it's going to take a while for it to vibrate free, right? So it's designed to work on the tie-down ring on the wings or on the tail of the aircraft. Either one would be fine. It's got the 152. It's a Cessna 152 that I fly, and it has 1-inch tie-down rings. So I started by going to Home Depot or Lowe's, I don't remember which one I went to, and I purchased a couple of these little guys. I'm not sure what they're called, but it has some little spikes that would stick down. I think you use it to put into wood on the backside, and then you can put a screw in to tighten in, a bolt into a piece of wood. I wanted something that had a lot of threads on it, but that I could also tighten up quickly and easily, so this fit the bill. And it had the right threads for the bicycle seat cam. In my garage I also had a little rubber washer. I'm not sure what it was for. I had it in a bin full of parts. I also, while I was at the hardware store, I purchased a washer, a couple of washers. I had to drill it out a little bit to make this be able to fit through it. And then it was also a little bit bigger. I wanted it to be able to fit within the 1-inch ring. So I ended up putting a bolt, taking a bolt, putting it through, tightening it up, putting it on the end of my drill, and then spinning it while I held it against a file to file it down to the right size so that it would fit into the 1-inch ring. The other part of this is a little piece of aluminum. I had a friend who was an aerospace engineer, and I was working on a motorcycle display, or a gauge set on my motorcycle, and I was talking to him and telling him, hey, I could use a piece of aluminum, and he said, well, I've got plenty of those at work where we do testing on things, and then we just have a scrap pile full of them, so I'll bring you one. So he brought me a decent sized sheet of it. So I already had this sitting in the garage. I went ahead and grabbed it. It's some kind of aluminum alloy. I'm not sure what it is, but it's pretty stiff and pretty strong. So I put that in a vise, bent it at 90 degrees. I had a GoPro mount. This is a knockoff brand. It came with this camera that I have here. It's a DB Power. It's not a true GoPro. It doesn't shoot as well as my GoPro does, but it does work. And it came with some good connections, feet and those kinds of things. So this foot has an adhesive backing on it, but it also had a screw bolt into it, a 1/4-inch screw bolt. So what I ended up doing was sticking it down onto the aluminum, drilling a hole through it, putting a screw into it from the other side, and then I put JB weld inside of the threads here to keep it nice and tight, just to make sure that it wouldn't come loose in flight. Just hopefully a little security measure. I also have this little piece of wire here that straps to the side, and then to the well, not GoPro, but to the action camera here, just to make sure that it doesn't fall off in flight as well. A little extra security measure. And then it just kind of slides into place like that, holds on tight. Alright, so as I was trying to put it back together, I realized that I put the wrong washer along with this whatever kind of bolt that is, the wood bolt. I actually was putting the wrong one on. This is the one that should go on there. on the back, and then this goes onto here. And then if you put the whole thing together, you can see that it fits in there just right. When you tighten it down, it'll just barely, it's a little less than flush there. I don't know if you can see that in the video here or not, but it's a little less than flush there. And so here's a ring that I found that's it's an inch in diameter. It's the same size as the tie-down rings on the airplane. So I use that for measuring. And if you see, you can put this right inside of this, and it fits nice and snug just inside of that. The idea is that when you tighten this down, the little rubber washer right there will fit very snugly inside of it, and then when you tighten it down, it will actually squeeze out and fill in all the gaps in there and make it a nice, tight, firm fit. So I'll just put it in there so I can demonstrate that when I put it together here. So that's kind of the process, just like that. This will go on the back side here, and then put this ring right inside of there. Tighten this guy down. Right, you can kind of see where the ring is inside of there, but as I tighten this up, it will eventually get nice and tight, pull itself in there. That thing doesn't have any wiggle room at all. Another little safety feature I put on this was, you'll see this little notch that's cut down here. I'll try to get a good angle of that maybe so you can see it. I was nervous about this cam coming loose, and so I actually cut a little notch in this and bent it around with my vise and a pair of needle nose pliers. Once you get the cam tightened up, you just you can flip this down and then twist it just a little bit, and it actually fits down inside of that notch, and the idea is that it won't come loose. I always point that into the wind so that as I'm flying, the air flows over the top of this, going this direction, and that should never ever come loose. And if it does, it actually tightens the bolt, so it actually will secure itself better if it ever did kind of turn to the right like that, clockwise. I also have a little lock nut that I put on here, just on the end, just another little security measure. Surprisingly, once you get this on there and tight, up against there, and then when you pull the cam tight, it actually locks that thing into place so tight that you can't possibly remove even the lock nut here without a pair of pliers. It really gets it tight and doesn't move. So there you go. As far as internal cameras go, this is my GoPro. This is the one I use inside. It's a lot more expensive than the cheap DB Power one that my wife bought me for Christmas. The DB Power cost about, I think it was $35 or $40. The GoPro, it's a GoPro Hero 2. It's pretty old, but I paid probably $200, $300 for it back in the day. I don't remember how much it was. But the good thing about the GoPro is that it has a microphone input. A lot of guys will actually record their audio into their cell phone. They'll get a cable, and I've got a cable here, I'll show in a second. And they'll plug it into their cell phone, and then they'll run an app to record their voice, and then they have to sync the audio later on. Using the GoPro, it actually, as you're shooting the video, it puts a voiceover track on it as well, and then you don't have to sync it. It's already synced with the video file. So the cable that I use to connect into the airplane is created. I can't remember the name of the company. It's NFlightcam something or other. I'll put the information down in the notes there. So it's essentially, you just plug this end into the airplane. This is your headphone jack. And then you plug your headphones into this jack. So it kind of looks like that. It's just kind of an extender, sort of. And then it has another tail that comes off. And on the end of this long tail is an 1/8 inch jack. So basically anything that comes out of that you hear in your headset is going to come out on this 1/8 inch jack as well. And that plugs right into the GoPro. The same company also makes them for the newer GoPros that use the USB connection. They also have see here, it's got 3 prongs, or three sections here. This is for a stereo connector. But they also have 4 that are specifically made to plug into your cell phone if you wanted to use it is a voice recorder. So it has two stereo headphones as well as a negative or ground, and then also a fourth one for the microphone. In my case, what I needed was a 3-prong one that works fine with the GoPro, and it does. I just plug it in. It works great. Anything that you hear over the radio through your headphones, the GoPro picks up. I have the GoPro usually hooked up on this, it was a cheap little suction cup GoPro connector. I got it on Amazon. I think it was about $10. And you hook up a couple of these extenders on the GoPro extenders, and you can kind of make it go kind of any direction you want. I typically will put it on the side window behind me over my shoulder, or if my CFI isn't sitting in the right seat, I'll put it on that window on the inside. I try not to get him in the video too much because I'm not sure if he wants to be on YouTube or not. So there you have it. That's what I use for my camera gear.